Dan, we're at the Midwest LSA Expo. I think this is, what, the 4th year that it's run now?
It's the 4th year of it, and that's what the sign tells us, so I think we found the right place, Dave. And you know what? We're going to see a lot of airplanes here because we always do, like 40, 50 airplanes here. If you thought the LSA Mall was great at Sun and Fun or Oshkosh, and we think they are, well, they're going to have twice as many or more airplanes here for people to fly, and you can get right out and demo them.
And the other thing is that you get to talk to the actual people that are selling you the airplanes, and they're not rushed like they would be at Oshkosh or Sun and Fun.
Yeah, you know, the big shows, Dave, they're fun. They're huge crowds. There's explosions going off. There's business jets. There's huge military stuff. They're great. We love those shows, and you got to go to those shows. But boy, you wait in line to talk to somebody, and you wait and wait and wait, and then somebody cuts in front of you anyway. It's not always such a great experience because there's so many people there. That which makes it good makes it not always so great. Here, you can get right up, you can talk, and they'll talk to you as long as you need to. And then they can say, well, you want to go for a flight? Well, when do I get on the schedule? No, I mean, you want to go for a flight right now, and the runway is 50 feet away, and out you go, and you're up in the air just like that. A pretty little area to do so.
And the people that are putting on the show, Dan, are oriented to keeping you happy all of the time. They were out there today in the heat giving water to people walking around because that's the type of facility they are.
Well, you know, it's true. There's as at all of these shows, they are utterly dependent on a virtual army of volunteers. Now, there's got to be some paid staff directing the action. In the case of paid staff here, it's airport manager Chris Collins, and he, in his way of handling things, is both a good business manager and a nice person, which don't always come together. And he brings together his group of orange-shirted folks that you could pick out of anywhere in the crowd, and every one of them seems intent on making sure you have a good time. But even the boss came out and gave us some gas for our golf cart today. So that's the kind of attitude they've got. Ask any of the vendors here and they'll say something similar.
Now, we started early this morning, and we are going to spend all day doing what?
We're going to go around and we're going to talk to we're going to look at every single airplane here, every single one. We're not going to miss a single airplane. So there will be somewhere between 40 and 50 short videos, little vignettes that show what's available here at the Midwest LSA Sport Expo, and a good reason for you to come back next year and the years beyond.
And it's not just light sport either. We covered everything.
That's true, actually. There's kits here, there's ultralights here, or what used to be ultralights we used to know as. The whole range of light sporting type aircraft, not just LSA, are here. And more than that, there's a nice little museum here in the airport. There's a great restaurant with one of the vendors today said, gee, I wish the big shows would figure out how to serve food like this. There's hangars. They're putting airplanes away tonight because there might be a little weather. They're going to make sure that everybody gets inside. For those that can inside, they've arranged at another airport for them to take some airplanes just a short flight away. That kind of extra service you just can't find at the big shows. They might want to do it. They can't do it because they've got so much going on there. Here it's all about helping the vendors, which if you help the vendors, you help the people that come out to see what those vendors have to offer. So you've got to come to the Midwest LSA Expo. It's typically in the first week or so of September. This year it's proven to be, while we got a little weather coming in, it's the end of the day. We got a whole good day in. It's been a great time of weather here. It's a nice location, central in the United States and within big population centers. So put it on your plans for next year. Find out more about how to do that at MidwestLSAShow.com. Find out more about this particular show or any of the aircraft that are here, news, videos, and more available at buydanjohnson.com or bydanjohnson.com. Thanks for coming along on our tour. On down the line here at the Midwest LSA Expo, the biggest little air show west of the Oshkosh. I'm Dan Johnson. Now I'm standing in front of our market leader, and that's literally what it is. It is the flight design CTLS, their latest iteration of their design. Well, wait a minute, they've got one even newer, the CTLS-I, which features the new 912 injected Rotax engine. This one also has the Rotax engine. Almost looks like there's not enough room for an engine in here, but in fact, there's plenty of room. And there's plenty of room inside as well. This airplane is 49.5 inches or so in width. That's a full 10 inches wider than a Cessna 172. If you've ever flown, odds are you've been in a 172 one time or another. This thing and many of these LSA out here are all bigger inside than that airplane. Pretty interesting. Side by side, conventional control with joysticks. It does use a handbrake instead of toe brakes. All made out of carbon fiber, not just fiberglass, but carbon fiber. That's to keep it as light as possible. This airplane is 98% carbon fiber, they say. There's a few bits of steel in it that make up the difference. In the LSA space, this has been from day one the market leader. It was the #2 airplane to win its approval back in April of 2005, and they have sold over 350 of these in the United States alone, and something like 1,800 around the world. It's for sale in many other countries as well. It's had a long and storied history. So, for more information about this airplane, the other airplanes that Flight Design sells, we recommend you go to their U.S. distributor, who is one of the best respected in the business. That's flightdesignusa.com. I've got information about all their airplanes and more and news at bydanjohnson.com or bydanjohnson.com. Still looking around the Midwest LSA Expo, the biggest little show west of Oshkosh, and we can still be looking around because there's quite a few airplanes here. Now we're looking at the Allegro, the 2007 Allegro, made in the USA now. It was originally designed in the Czech Republic, but it is now a United States product in every way. And this is by a company called LSA America. We'll come back to that in a moment. But this is a true composite airplane in the sense that it not only uses fiberglass components in some areas, it uses an all-metal wing. And that's really what a composite is. A composite is not an all fiberglass airplane. It's a composite of various things. So this is a great example of that. This airplane has had some wonderful successes in flight schools. In fact, they've got a flight school right at the factory where they make these now, operating under a little different name, but I believe it's got in excess of 4,000 hours on it, which speaks to the fact that some people look at these airplanes and say, they're not strong enough to handle that kind of duty. Indeed, one of these has not only done that, but done it so long that it's gone through 2 overhauls on its Rotax 912 engine. At 2,000 hours each, there's your 4,000 hours. So the Allegro from North Carolina now, where they're headquartered, is from a company called LSA America, and there's a good number of these flying. They rank well up in the top 20, and it's now, as I said, an all-American product. You can get more information about them at lsaamerica.com. And I've got information about them, including pilot reports and more, on bydanjohnson.com or bydanjohnson.com. We are at the biggest little air show west of Oshkosh. I'm Dan Johnson, and now we're looking at another high wing, and an all-metal high wing. This is the Cessna Skycatcher, one of the most popular airplanes in the LSA fleet, one that attracts a lot of viewers to the YouTube channel to watch these kind of things, and we're real pleased to have a look at this airplane. This is #2 of the 8 that got flown all around the country by a cadre of young fellas and gals who went out and sort of spread the message that light sport aircraft flying is fun, and you can afford it, and you could do it at your local, in their case, Cessna pilot centers or places like that. So this Cessna Skycatcher is different in a couple of ways. Number one, it's using the Continental engine. A few of our LSA players, like the Cubs and so forth, use Continental engine, but most are using the Rotax. They chose Continental because they're group of people that know how to operate, work on this airplane, know it so well, that engine so well. It's also got kind of a different joystick that doesn't come up out of the floor. It comes back to you out of the panel, but it's a regular, kind of like a one-handed yoke. That makes this airplane, among its grand brand name of Cessna, which everybody knows, a little different than all the other airplanes. So this airplane got flown all around the country by a bunch of young folks, and we've got one of them right here. Taylor, you mind coming over and talking to us for a bit?
How's it going?
Great. You guys did a great job out there. You put this out on Facebook and Twitter. How'd that work for you?
You know, it was a big success. So they weren't too sure what to expect when we started the program.
Cessna.
But, Cessna, yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, their Facebook exponentially went up in numbers. The Cessna Facebook did, our Facebooks did a great job. A lot of young people saw it and learned a lot about the Skycatcher. A lot of my friends saw it. And us going all over the place and thought it was really cool. So it was a big success.
Very good. And Taylor's got a special privilege tonight at the end of the show. The show's not over yet. He'll be back tomorrow, but he gets to fly this airplane back home to Southern Illinois University where he's headquartered. Yep. Nice job. Be safe going home. Thanks for talking to us, Taylor.
Nice seeing you.
So for more information about the Cessna, the Skycatcher, go to Cessna.com and just look for the Skycatcher name. If that's not clear enough for you, you can go to my website. That's bydanjohnson.com or bydanjohnson.com. You'll find Cessna all over there. Continuing our tour of the Midwest LSA Expo, the biggest little air show west of Oshkosh, we're now looking at this really bright airplane. You got to wear sunglasses to take a gander at this one. The good news about that is you'll see it in the air real well too. This is the Aerotrek A240. There's two of these. There's an A240 as we see here, and it's got a nose wheel on it, steerable nose wheel. The A220 version, we got one in the trailer back there because you can fold the wings and trailer this. We'll talk more about that in just a second. But that's the A220 tail dragger. Same airplane exactly, but done in those two forms. This is it's a fabric covered wing, a welded steel interior fuselage, certain amount of composite components up here on the front to make for a nice smooth cowl, wheel pants and so forth. And then as you look back here, you can see the seam lines here that are done for fabric covering all of the tail surfaces, all the fuselage and everything done out of fabric. This is one of our best price point airplanes in the business. I don't have an exact number and these things change, but it's well under $100,000 for this airplane. And yet, when you get up close and you look at the detail, whether it's that seaming of the fabric, or whether you look inside and check how well it's made, or just any part of this, every time I've examined this airplane closely, I come away thinking, man, they do a really nice job of building these airplanes over there in the Czech Republic. Brought into the United States by Aerotrek. The name of the company here is Aerotrek. Over there it's Aero Pro, the manufacturer. And this company in the United States is run by a man named Rob Rollison, who goes back a long time in this business. A lot of experience in ultralights and weight shift and other kinds of aircraft, and finally settled after looking at many of these things, and Rob is a smart character, as anyone who's spoken to him knows, finally settled on the Aero Pro as his airplane of choice, and he is going to town with this. I think he's up around 70 of these aircraft sold in the United States now, and that means 70 people got a really good value on a nice flying airplane. So, steel interior, fabric covering, composite parts. Here we got another true composite airplane, and one that you'll enjoy flying. Nice controls, nice capabilities, but not so hard on your wallet. And that's a nice thing to say in the modern environment. This is about the kind of airplane that we thought was coming when the LSA sector first emerged. So, get more information about the Aerotrek and their two airplanes and their other features that they've got to offer. The company is also related to a company that has all kinds of accessory stuff. And so you can get pretty much everything you need at one source. Go to flyaerotrek.com. That's fly-aerotrek.com. I've got information about this, including pilot reports and news about it. You can get all that on bydanjohnson.com or bydanjohnson.com. Still looking around here at the Midwest LSA Expo, the biggest little show west of Oshkosh. And now we're looking at an airplane that's selling really well. This one happens to be the Super Legend, but there's a whole series of these American Legend Cub lookalikes. And I say lookalike because while they look like the famous Piper Cub, there's a lot of improvements to these airplanes. For one, you can see right through here, there's doors on both sides. That's a characteristic that the original Cub didn't have, but many other things too. And these fellows have also experimented around with different engines. They use the Lycoming engine, but they've also tried the Jabiru, and they've continued to look at different improvements, larger tires, different cockpit simulations, and all sorts of things that they can do to make the choices broader than you could get on the original Piper Cubs. And by the way, this one will outperform that hands down in virtually every category you can imagine. What we've got here is a high wing, but we've got a high wing with fabric covering on it, just like the originals, fabric covered fuselage, fabric covered wings and tail surfaces. And you can buy this from a related company called Texas Sport Aircraft in kit form, or you can have it as a special special light sport aircraft ready to fly airplane. So the American Legend Company, based in Sulphur Springs, Texas. I've been down there and visited their very nice facility. You can get a lot of satisfaction out of this kind of airplane in a sporting, fun airplane. And once again, we're seeing them here at the Midwest LSA Expo.
And this airplane's available on floats as well, Dan?
Yep, they've got them on floats. Thanks for bringing that up. They've got a real nice float package from a company that was doing floats that got out of it now, but fortunately that got taken over by some other companies as well, so it's not a problem, and you can still get the floats. So get more information about all the different variations of American Legend aircraft at legend.aero, or you can get more information off of my website, the Legion of American Legend. That's at bydanjohnson.com or bydanjohnson.com. Here at the Midwest LSA Expo, the biggest little show west of Oshkosh, I had to actually take a seat for a second on the leading edge of this wing because we have done a lot of airplanes, over 40 of them here for people to come out and see. If you thought the LSA malls were great, and we think they are, there's only 15, 16, 18 airplanes there. There's more than twice that here at the Midwest show in Mount Vernon, Illinois. This is the Alto 100, and it's got air conditioning. My name is Dan Johnson, and I had a chance to fly this very aircraft here with that system in it. And I got to tell you just a little bit about it, then we'll come back to the airplane. It was a day, not much like today, warm but not stiflingly hot. We got in the cockpit. The canopy slides forward, and we closed the cockpit up, and we took off. And of course, we got a lot of air coming in, so it felt great. But we had the air conditioning system on, and I thought, you know, I don't hear it, I don't feel it. That's not all bad. You don't want to hear a whining noise going on all the time, but I really didn't notice it. Until we got down on the ground, we taxied up, and Ron shut the engine off. Ron Corby, the proprietor behind this airplane here in the United States, shut the engine off, left the canopy closed, turned the air conditioning off. Instantly, it started to get warm in there, and I went, aha, that system was working, and it was working very well. It can provide heat and cooling. It comes over the top and down the canopy, and so it clears the canopy off as well. It's a nice double-edged sword there that does a lot of good things for you for just 22 pounds of extra weight and not all that much cost. I think $78,000.
And it can fit on almost anything.
And you can put it on any airplane, right? It's on the Alto 100 here we see being sold by Corby Air in the United States, but it can be applied to any airplane. We've also seen it on a couple others, and I can believe it's going to be on more, but this was the first airplane to have it. So we're looking at the Alto 100 here. I've always liked sliding canopy construction. Number one, when you put up a canopy that flips up this way and you got a lot of wind blowing from behind, that can really put a lot of stress on that canopy. If you should, God forbid, have a ditching in the water and you're upside down, getting out of one of those can be a challenge. Here you've got a much better proposition, but even better, with or without air conditioning, you can leave the canopy closed at whatever level you want, and it doesn't tend to flop around or close quickly on you or anything, so you can have kind of natural air conditioning just by the airflow coming into it. The airplane itself is an all-metal constructed airplane built in Europe and brought to this country by Corby Air, a family-owned company of about 50 years experience. They know a lot of stuff about airplanes. They picked carefully and chose this one. A very sweet flying little airplane. Not distinguished in any particular way, but the beauty of it is it does kind of everything well. And really a well-rounded airplane is better than something that's spectacularly good at one thing and then kind of lousy in other areas. So here's an airplane that draws it all together well. Get more about the Alto 100 or about Corby Air and what they do, or about the air conditioning on this or other airplanes at corbyair.com. You can find them and more information about their products on my website as well. That's bydanjohnson.com or bydanjohnson.com. gotten down the line here at the Midwest LSA Expo, the biggest little air show west of the Oshkosh, and we're now looking at one of our market leaders in a sense. I'll tell you why in a second. This is the CubCrafters Carbon Cub SS. It's a few words to say in there, but there's a reason why it has all those in it. Carbon Cub because it's got a lot of carbon components. If you look back here across the interior, you can see that carbon-like material. And we see it up here on the engine cowl as well. Why do they use that? They use it to keep the weight down on this airplane. It costs a little more to do it that way, but it allows them to stay within the category better. The reason why it says SS Super Sport, because this has got a big engine in it. The biggest engine in the LSA fleet so far at 180 horsepower. Now it's time limited. You can't use that much power all the time in flight, but it allows this thing to have some impressive takeoff characteristics, and they've been showing it off here. We've got two of them here at the show, and they've been taking off and climbing out like homesick angels over and over again to show the capabilities of that big engine. CubCrafters has been the leader I mentioned earlier in a couple of ways. It's because the last 2 years they've been, maybe not first, but they've been high on the list of those that have delivered the most airplanes. Last year they were number 2. They're in that position again, but they're only number 2 to Cessna, so that's a pretty impressive accomplishment. And they are putting out about 3 airplanes a month at current records, and that's a mighty impressive performance in the LSA space at this time. Get more information about CubCrafters and all their different airplanes. They've got more than just the one we're looking at here at CubCrafters.com. I've got information about them as well, news and other reports available on BuyDanJohnson.com or BYDanJohnson.com. We're here at the Midwest LSA Expo, the biggest little air show west of Oshkosh, and we keep finding another airplane here that arrives. This one came a day late, but not $1 short. This is the Ekolot Topaz, a very handsome little airplane. Its interior, we'll have to have a look quickly because it's got a very special interior to it, special in the sense of how well it's done. And there are people that say these light sport aircraft are kind of basic and simple airplanes, and some of them are, and there's nothing wrong with that. But some of them are just done up really nice, and here's a good example of this. An imported airplane and came into the country, I think about 3 years ago, and got its light sport aircraft approval. Let's go have a look at the inside of this Ekolot Topaz. So I told you this had a kind of a neat interior. Look at this nice wood grain finish to it. Center joystick. It's got some neat features here, like a little center console box and some other stuff that you can kind of store your in-flight needs and whatnot. Dual throttles on both sides. You can't see the other one over there, but there's one on each side on the outside. Very convenient place to put it. The airplane looks small, but it's actually quite roomy inside and very comfortable. Leather interior, and it's just got a center joystick, but so that it can be used for instruction, there's another one that attaches to the side here so that an instructor can let the student think he's doing it all, but can actually guide right along with him. Pretty neat little airplane. Get more information about this Ekolot Topaz at niu-g.com. At letters that stand for the name of the company. I've also got news and video on this at BuyDanJohnson.com or BYDanJohnson.com. Still running around here at the Midwest LSA Expo, the biggest little air show west of Oshkosh. I'm Dan Johnson, and today we're looking at a very special airplane. It's the Evektor. This happens to be the SportStar Max here. There's been various iterations on the Evektor theme. The reason why I consider it special? Mainly this. It's the very first one in the LSA space. This is airplane number 1 to win its SLSA, or fully manufactured LSA approval from FAA. This particular one, as I said, SportStar Max. They've also got the Harmony now, which has a little different wing configuration. All of them are very GA-like, is how a lot of folks describe them. And indeed, just like many of these airplanes out here at the show, this particular one's for sale. Maybe they'll make a sale here before the show's over. Here we've got an all-metal airplane. Certain amount of the usual drill here with the engine cowl and the wheel fairings and so forth. They're fiberglass, but the airplane itself is all metal. This one you see uses a whole series of vortex generators on the leading edge of the wing that helps it in its slow speed flying characteristics, makes the stall a little more agreeable to the pilot. And it's a nice handling airplane. We've got a full-length pilot report you can follow on YouTube about this airplane, but it's one of our leaders in the LSA space for two reasons. Not only was it first to the party, it's one that's commonly used in flight schools. So the Evektor brand, sold in America by two companies, AB Flight and Dreams Come True, and you can find out more about this airplane and those companies at MidwestSportPlanes.com. I've got information about them as well, including pilot reports and that video pilot report we talked about at bydanjohnson.com or bydanjohnson.com. Get close to our tour, at the end of our tour here at the Midwest LSA Expo, the biggest little air show west of Oshkosh, and we're now looking at an airplane that has drawn more looks in the last year or two than almost any other light sport aircraft that I've watched. And this is the FK12 Comet from a company called FK Light Planes in Europe, actually now based in Poland, but it's represented here by Hansen Air Group, who has been backing this aircraft quite a bit. Some very interesting things about this airplane, besides its really sharp looks and its dramatic paint job and whatnot. Here's a biplane, first of all. That's not so common in the LSA space anyway. In fact, I can't really think of another one right off the top of my head, but not only does it have bi-wings, these bi-wings fold, and fold pretty easily. Not an hours long proposition, but literally minutes. In addition, it comes with a Rotax 912 engine, but they've been working hard with another company to put the Lycoming O233 in there, and then this airplane can be used for aerobatic flying. And last year at this show, I went up with Mike Hansen and flew in this airplane, and we didn't do full-on aerobatics in it, but we did some tight maneuvering, and I wanted to say this airplane felt like it was ready to do it. They couldn't get upside down in it then because it had the Rotax in it. They got the Lycoming one coming. They'll be upside down before you know it. It's a whole family of airline pilots represent these airplanes, and they know how to fly airplanes in that configuration. So the FK12 airplane is just one of the fleet of airplanes that Hansen Air Group sells. You can find more about the Hansen Air Group and the FK12 Comet, the Sky-Aero, and the Paragan, which we're going to look at in another video, all at hansenairgroup.com. You can find more about all these airplanes and more videos available at bydanjohnson.com or bydanjohnson.com. We're at the Midwest LSA Expo, the biggest little air show west of Oshkosh. And now we're looking at yet another high wing. This is an airplane that we feel like we've seen before, and it is, but it's now associated with a different name. This is the ICP Savannah, and it was always that, but there was another company that built kits in the USA. Some people know that company. Now it's ICPNorthAmerica.com, and they are the ones that had this cool little sign at Oshkosh, by the way. For those that were there, your wife called and said it's okay to buy. It was on a lot of pictures, I'm sure, and mine as well, so we had a little fun with this. This is a all-metal, high-wing airplane that has short takeoff and landing capability. It uses the Rotax engine, and it in many ways is a great flyer, but look at that price in the window. Under $70,000 for a ready-to-fly airplane. Those people that said it can't be done, well, obviously they were wrong. And we'd like to pull in Walter Della Nebbia.
Bravo.
Della Nebbia. That's pretty good. Excuse my torturing of the Italian language.
That's
there.
fine. Been here for 20 years, I'm used to it.
You're used to it by now. So did you have some good response to the airplane at
Yes,
Oshkosh?
so we have already sold few kits and few ready-to-fly
You're doing
airplanes.
kits as well then?
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
good. I didn't know that fact. Thank you for bringing that up. And what do you think of the Midwest LSA Expo?
I think it's a great opportunity. It's more of a buyer show than more than an aviation enthusiast show. It's perfect because we can do demo flight and and get in touch with the guys.
Yeah, you're about 2 minutes away from a demo flight, if that. That would be assuming there's a traffic lineup.
That's exactly
And
right.
there's not. So great. We're glad to hear you're enjoying the show and that you've come to the show, and we hope you keep coming back to the Midwest LSA Expo. You can get more information at ICP North America. ICP is the Italian manufacturer that builds the component parts for Vulcan, and you can get more information about all of those at bydanjohnson.com or bydanjohnson.com. Looking around further at the Midwest LSA Expo, the biggest little air show west of Oshkosh. Now we're looking at the Jabiru. Here's an interesting airplane in a lot of different ways. It's obviously a composite airplane, you can tell by its smooth lines, and it's a manufactured kit that comes out as a special light sport aircraft. It's got a number of differences to it. One of the most obvious is, look at this, not one, not two, but 3 doors this airplane's got on it. And that's because in Australia, where this airplane was designed, it was a 4-seater, so there'd be 2 more seats back here, which means this airplane can carry 2 people in quite comfort. So back up here to the front of the airplane, the business end of the airplane, we're looking at the J230 Jabiru, manufactured by Jabiru US. That's the US company that imports a kit from Australia where the airplane was designed and puts it together. This is a perfectly legal and normal thing for them to do, and then certifies it as under the ASTM standards as a special light sport aircraft. And that's the way that this particular one is sold. You can get this particular, the J230 comes with the 3300 Jabiru. That's a 120 horse Jabiru engine, and gives this thing some really nice performance. Out to its little wingtip sails out there. The whole airplane is from front to nose, front to back, and wingtip to wingtip, an all composite airplane. And this one also can cruise at near the high end of the category. Now it may look a little small, and indeed, you can tell by my average height being taller than the wing, it is a little small, but once you get inside, it feels really comfortable, and then you've got that huge back area we saw through the rear door. So, let's go have a look at their single place model, or excuse me, their smaller 2-place model as well. If you don't need all the room of the J230, you can look at the J170. This is a little smaller airplane from the same folks at Jabiru. This was always a 2-seater, and that's why it does not have a 3rd door, but it's just as roomy on the inside, and this one for a flight school operator or someone like that can make a great trainer. So you get the J170, the J230, these are all from Jabiru US. You can find more about their company at jabirus.com, and I've got reports on these and more information about them on my website, bydanjohnson.com or bydanjohnson.com. On down the line a little further at the Midwest LSA Expo here, the biggest little air show west of Oshkosh. Now we're looking at a cool little airplane, and I mean little. Doesn't this look small? Of course it looks a little bit small because its wings are neatly folded back. So this is one of the neatest little airplanes into space. This is the Cub Firefly. This is a Part 103 vehicle, or at least it can be if you build it nice and light, and that is possible. That means that you can fly it without a pilot license, without an airworthiness certificate, without a pilot, without a medical certificate, without end numbers, and it can be flown ready to fly. Neat aspects to the simplest rule ever, which by the way is this month, September of 2012, 30 years old. This is the Firefly, which we had to go look and be sure because the wings are folded back here, and it has 2 struts on it. That's about the only way you can tell it from its slightly larger version, the Fire Star. But there are several different models from this company, and this particular one here looks like it's fitted up in a way that I really like. It's got a BRS parachute in it. When the wings come out here and fold together, this is going to be kind of buried underneath it, and here's the activating handle for that. Just in case you have a problem in the air of some kind, this brings the whole airplane down under canopy, you inside it, airplane and all. It's saved close to 280 lives so far and is a valuable part of the light aircraft space, I think. So this isn't the only airplane that Kolb has. They've got several different airplanes, and they moved over the years and changed ownership a few times, but it's a nice stable company, and now it's been in the same location for some time down in Kentucky, and you can get more information about the Firefly, the Firestar, and all the other Kolb airplanes. They've got some nice two-seaters as well at kolbaircraft.com. I've got information about many of their airplanes on my website. That's bydanjohnson.com or bydanjohnson.com. We're looking around further at the Midwest LSA Expo, the biggest little air show west of Oshkosh. And now we're looking at one of my favorites just because I love the lines of this airplane. We got a lot of beautiful airplanes in light sport. We're lucky that way. But one of the prettiest, in my humble opinion, is the Lightning from Arion Aircraft. And this one's different than what you've seen before. If you've looked at the Lightning, you didn't see this one because this one's got a bigger tail on it. The horizontal has been enlarged on it. And it's an interesting story because they said, the numbers changed in the ASTM standards, which is how these airplanes are certified. That's all bone dry and boring. But when those change periodically, as they do, these companies have to respond. And here's a company that jumped right on it, pulled back, did some work, spent some money, redesigned the tail, and made a better aircraft out of it. And so this handsome airplane here is an all composite. And you can tell by its sleek, clean lines throughout, composite on every surface of the airplane. Uses the Jabiru power plant because it's associated with the same company, not the same company itself, but it's associated with the Jabiru company that makes that engine. And so this has the 3300, 120 horsepower Jabiru in it, and with the new tail it's got on it, the stick forces and the controls of this airplane are even more delightful than they were before, and they were pretty good before. So you just got to look at this airplane.
So what categories does this aircraft fit into then?
Well, they've done a lot of stuff because they began as a kit company and sold about 100 of these things as an experimental amateur build kit. So there's a lot of them out there, and that was really kind of a smart way to do things because they were able to sort of work through the kinks of a new airplane a little better because they had so much feedback from builders who were putting the pieces together. Then they came out with an SLSA, a fully manufactured airplane, and that now allows them to do an ELSA, and they have one of those under construction right now. So experimental amateur built, special light sport aircraft fully built, experimental light sport aircraft kit built but not in the 51% rule. You can get it all with Arion Aircraft.
And it cruises at the real high end of the limit.
This is a performer. At the they call this a performance LSA. None of them can go faster than 120 knots, that's true, but not all of them do go fast, and they don't all need to. It's not required that you go that fast, but this one clearly runs right up to the limit, and just about perfectly they've got it timed. Want more information about the Arion Aircraft and their lovely Lightning LS1? Go to flylightning.net. And I've got information about it as well, and I can link you directly to them at bydanjohnson.com or bydanjohnson.com.
I like the red airplane.
Well, thank you. It's a pretty one, isn't it? We're here at the Midwest LSA Expo, the biggest little air show west of Oshkosh, and we had yet another new arrival. We're now on Saturday, and it's a lovely day, and there's good crowds out here today. This one is the Magni M24 Orion, and it's a fairly rare, or exceptionally rare, I could say, side-by-side two-seat gyro. Now, there's a lot of two-seat gyros. In fact, I think they're just about all two-seaters, but they're almost always like the one we see on the other side over there that's a tandem, one behind the other. This one's side-by-side. We did have some examples of like this earlier in the gyro era when they were almost all American-made. Now they tend to be European-made in great quantity, but this one's a rare one to come back with all the new finish. Like the little girl said, this is a real pretty little red airplane, and look at the finish qualities of this airplane. So, gyros are one of those rare commodities in the light sport world that has to be a kit because our friends at FAA can't seem to make up their mind about making them fully built. But a kit you can have, and they're not too bad to assemble, and we're going to find out more about it a little bit later. Get more information about the two-seater, either side-by-side or tandem, at magnigyro.com. I have some news and information about this as well on my site, bydanjohnson.com or bydanjohnson.com. Here at the Midwest LSA Expo, the biggest little air show west of Oshkosh, we've now come across one of the newest airplanes in the fleet. This is the Pipistrel Alpha. And they just released this. We saw it for the first time in the United States at Oshkosh just about a month ago. They've already sold like a dozen of them in the United States and many more around the world. This one they envision as a trainer, so its name is the Alpha Trainer. And indeed, this is a low price point airplane. It's done very simply. It's got things like a wood prop instead of a fancy composite prop that costs a lot more, all as a vehicle to hold down the price, which they've done so well that before costs like shipping and FAA registration, which add the same values to almost all airplanes, this one is only $85,000. And with the equipment it's got inside it, it has everything that you really need or want. They think this is going to do real well in flight schools, and I can believe it will. It's an all carbon fiber airplane, like all their airplanes, and they all are distinguished by having these really elegant wings. Why? Because the company built sailplanes for a while. They have a model called the Taurus. It's a lovely looking tandem seated motor glider and available with electric as well. The company's invested a lot of effort and energy into making electric airplanes, which will follow later, but they're learning about them much more now. They also distinguished themselves by not once, not twice, but 3 times winning a NASA award. The last time they won something like $1.6 million, which in aviation, that's a big award to win. And they were successful at doing that and have been able to apply that back into their research and do more and better things. They've also got a 4-place airplane called the Panthera, a sleek, lovely looking airplane coming along. But here in the LSA space, Alpha is their newest one, number 126 on the SLSA list. So that's a lot of airplanes you've got to discover about Pipistrel, a brand that's not in the top 20 yet, but it can't be more than a matter of weeks or certainly months before they're going to plug into that upper structure. They've already done well around the world. They're going to do much better here in the United States, and now they've got all the airplanes to do it. Find out more about all of them at pipistrel-usa.com. I've got information about these airplanes, including news bits about the things we talked about here in this video, all available for you on bydanjohnson.com or bydanjohnson.com. Down at the end of one row, but we still got another one to go. Despite all the airplanes we've already looked at, there's still more. Now we're looking at the Midwest LSA Expo, the biggest little air show in the west of Oshkosh. I'm Dan Johnson, and we're looking at the Challenger now, and we're going to look at another one too. This one is what's called sometimes bare bones. They didn't cover the airplane over yet. It's an idea to show you how the kit goes together, because this company only sells kits. They sold a lot of them, like 2,500 or maybe more than that now, and we'll come back to that company in just a second. But this is the single seat version. Does it look simple? Well, yes it is. That's the idea. It's supposed to be a simple, easy to fly, low cost, low operational cost airplane, and it is. And we're going to look at one in just a second that's got a price tag on it, and you'll see just how low that is. But one of the things that's real cool, we just talked with Jim Robinson. He's the purveyor of the Erie Air Park, where they work with Challengers, and they're somewhat near the factory, which is in Quad City, Iowa, and that is Challenger Ultralight. And next year they are going to celebrate 30 years. In the light aircraft world, that's a long, long time, and they've done all that with a single owner, a man named Dave Goulet, and he's had some partners over the years, but that one name, Dave Goulet, has been with the company since the beginning. A very impressive achievement that they've lasted so long, sold so many airplanes, and you just don't hear about accidents in these airplanes. Happens once in a while, sure, but not very often, because they've been proven to be a nice, reliable airplane. Let's go have a look at the 2-place model. So we looked at the single-place model, bare bones. Now we're looking at a completed one. And this one's for sale by a pilot examiner who loved it so much He went back to the guy he was giving the exam to and got him to train him how to fly this airplane, subsequently bought it. Kind of an interesting story. He's selling it now, gonna get something else, but $15,000. This is for a full, complete airplane in what looks to be very nice condition with a good sized engine on it. I can't see which one it is there, but parachute as well. Well equipped, ready to fly. A lot of fun for $15,000. So get more information about the several models of Quad City aircraft there are. They all named Challenger, but there's Challenger 2 and Special and so forth. Get all that at quadcitychallenger.com. Or if you want, you can just look up the Erie Park address, and that's where the 30th anniversary is going to be, and they are at erieairpark.com. I have information on the Quad City airplanes as well, the Challenger aircraft, done pilot reports on them. You can find that at bydanjohnson.com or bydanjohnson.com. Well, now we're in another little part of the Midwest LSA Expo, the biggest little show west of Oshkosh, and we're in what might be called the ultralight section, although there's technically nothing like a two-place ultralight anymore. But what we've got here, and it says right on the side of it, experimental, about the only place they can put it on the fuselage, by the way. And this is from a company called Quicksilver, who has built arguably more airplanes than anybody else in light sport or in light aviation, period. Over 15,000 of these kind of airplanes have been built and flown over the years, and virtually every one of those has been a kit. I say virtually because they did make a few Part 103 airplanes that could be built by a dealer, by the factory, by anybody, and delivered to a customer in fully built form. Most of them have been kits. Now, Quicksilver has just gone through an ownership change. It's now Quicksilver Aeronautics, and they will be moving toward SLSA approval for a version of this airplane and for their GT500 tandem-seated aircraft. Those aren't ready yet, but they're coming. This particular one is a converted aircraft. And because it's experimental, the owner can do pretty much anything he likes to do with it. It's one of the cool aspects of the light aircraft space that includes what EAA has championed for many, many years, half a century, what's called the 51% rule, but is officially the experimental amateur-built rule. And so that means an owner who built the airplane himself can do pretty much anything he wants to it. He has to get it inspected by someone eventually, but otherwise the choice is up to him. So this individual took one that you noticed, Dave, had the longer wings on it, but is otherwise probably a converted MX, and it's got a few of the changes. The other day we saw a Sprint that had this same idea here, where this blue tube that I'm pointing at is replacing some cables that used to manipulate the ailerons out at the end of the wings. The beauty of an experimental, do what you like, maintain it yourself, and it still flies like the same charming way Quicksilver's did always. There's a whole bunch of airplanes from Quicksilver Aeronautics, and you can find all those at their website, which is, by the way, a brand new website for them. It's at quicksilveraircraft.com. I've gotten to fly every single one of their airplanes over the years. Well, not all 15,000 of them, but each of their models over the years. You can find all that information and more at bydanjohnson.com or bydanjohnson.com. Still moving down the line here at the Midwest LSA Expo, that biggest little air show east of Oshkosh that we're enjoying so much this year. Now we're looking at another RANS airplane. This one is the S-7, specifically, this one's the S-7 Courier. That means this one's a light sport airplane. It means it's ready to fly, available, ready to fly. But you could also get this airplane in a kit, and you can get it as an ELSA model as well. But one of the things that differentiates this airplane from all the others out here on this field today, and with only one other exception in the whole light airplane spaces, this airplane was approved under what's called primary category. If you think you know something about that, it may be because Cessna just announced they are going to do their LSA, the Skycatcher, under primary category in order for them to sell it into European markets without having to wait for the European regulatory mechanism to catch up with the LSA idea. So Here's a company that's already done this years ago. Back in the 90s, they did their approval for this airplane. But primary category today is probably not how you'll buy it. You'll buy it as an SLSA, an ELSA, or a 51%, that is, experimental amateur built airplane. This is a fabric, steel tube interior, some composite used on the nose cowling and spinner and like that. But most of it is fabric covered. And it's a tandem seated airplane with the one giant door that allows entry to both seats, and it's one of the nicest flying of its type that I've had the pleasure to fly. Get more about this airplane on RANS.com, and you can read my pilot report and lots of news about RANS on bydanjohnson.com or bydanjohnson.com. We're on yet another row here at the Midwest LSA Expo, the biggest little show west of Oshkosh. We're looking at the RANS S9, but this is a little different one, and we saw this here for the first time. I believe it was last year. This has the Jabiru 3300 120 horsepower engine in it, and I got a chance to fly this airplane last year here at this wonderful place where you can get out in literally 2 minutes. The runway is right behind us. You can be out there in no time at all, take a demo flight. One of the great things about this show. And 120 horsepower with this particular engine on this airplane, I was very impressed. Ran smooth and nice. And smooth is good in airplane engine. So what we're looking at here is the RANS S19, an all-metal low wing from an American producer in Hays, Kansas. And this one, besides having this big engine in it, very conventional control, side-by-side joystick. It does use brakes for steering because it's got a full cast-ring nose wheel on it, and much like some other airplanes, like the mainline Sirius airplanes that use a similar system, works really well, but it of course has to have toe brakes to do that. So RANS has a whole fleet of airplanes, and we're going to look at another one here in just a minute, but they've got several that qualify in one of the categories. You can buy a RANS as an experimental aircraft and build it yourself under the 51% rule. You can buy an SLSA version of this airplane, or their S-7 or their S-6, and those can be ready to fly, factory built from the Hays, Kansas factory, or you can buy an ELSA model. So you can pretty much have a RANS any way you want. And the next airplane we look at from this company was even certified under a different system. So here's a company that's done it all, 4,500 airplanes or more in the field now, one of our great American success stories in light aviation. Get more information about RANS and all their airplanes at RANS.com. I've got information about most of their products. I've flown several of their airplanes. You can find that on bydanjohnson.com or bydanjohnson.com. Dan Johnson here at the Midwest LSA Sport Expo, the biggest little show west of Oshkosh, and we're starting on row number 4 of all these aircraft. Actually, there's 5 rows of aircraft here. Really impressive. More than 40 airplanes out here for people to come and see. So next year, come on out and see the Midwest Light Sport Expo. We're looking at the Remos. This is the GX model. This is their latest iteration of this aircraft. It was a G3 before it, and they made some nice improvements to it. One with one of the sharpest interiors we've seen, used in a lot of flight schools, a very popular airplane, all carbon fiber, the entire aircraft. This one, as you see, is a single strut design. Uses the Rotax 912 engine that we so commonly see, dual joysticks inside, side-by-side seating, a comfortable, nice flying airplane. Almost anybody that takes a ride in a Remo seems to come away with a smile on their face. One of the good things that has happened for this company in particular is that they were AOPA's selection as an aircraft to give away in their annual sweepstakes. They can only pick one per year, and they've only ever picked one light sport, and this was it, the GX, the Remos GX. It was also used by a gentleman named Michael Combs in 2 flights that he did that were noteworthy. One was to fly to all 50 states in the Union, and I think something like 225 airports or like that. and he's a media savvy guy, and so when he would get to each airport, he would call out the local media and did a lot of good, not just for light sport, but for all of aviation, showing people that they could come out and learn how to fly, and here was an airplane you could do it in. He was a fairly new pilot when he did all this, and he did it all because he had had a bout with a health matter that just about took his life, and he said he wanted to go out and say you can still have your dream, and so he took that effort. Then with his son, just this year, he tried to make a cross-country flight, and for an NAA world record, which is not an easy thing to do. You have to meet a lot of parameters, and one of them is you have to complete the flight in the time you said, whether or not. And he got almost all the way across the country, started on the West Coast, got all within a few hundred miles, or not even that, of his destination, got weathered in, couldn't complete the flight, so he didn't get the world record. He's going to try again, he says, but it just proves that you can fly these little aircraft, these light sport aircraft, a long, long way. So, get more information about the Remos, find their local U.S. dealers in the United States at remos.com. You can get lots more information about the company, news, pilot reports, and more at my website. That's bydanjohnson.com or bydanjohnson.com. We're at the Midwest LSA Expo. We're continuing our turn. This is the biggest little air show west of Oshkosh. I'm Dan Johnson, and now I'm standing in front of the TL-Ultralight Sirius, the TL-3000. This company has got a low wing. We looked at their S4 Sting earlier, and now we're looking at their Sirius airplane. So one high wing, one low wing. Whatever you like, you can pretty much have it. This airplane is kind of different in some other ways, but some of the ways it's similar is that besides being a high wing, it's all carbon fiber, just like the low wing Sting is. But it's got some more interesting stuff, and I think we ought to have a look inside to see some of that. Now we're inside the Sirius TL-3000 airplane, and besides having a real comfortable looking interior with some great seats with side bolsters and everything else, we got sort of a different arrangement with the sticks here. Well, we kind of have a stick slash yoke on this side, but on this side we've got an actual yoke. This is the only airplane I know of in the LSA space that looks quite like this, but so comfortable, and you can have it different ways. They're just kind of showing this as the two ways that you can have it. One of the special qualities of light sport aircraft is the manufacturer can make it in different ways and can get it approved with those differences without having to go through the long process of government certification. So for this particular airplane or any of the airplanes at sportairusa.sales, you can go to this website or you can go to the other ones. This one is Sirius.aero, or you can go to sportair.aero, or you can go to my website where you can pick up information on all these airplanes and all the other LSA in the space at bydanjohnson.com or bydanjohnson.com.
I lost all the electronics in my Aztec. Everything went totally out. and Cahokia did not have its beacon working, had gone out, failed. And all I could see was that one.
Finishing our rollout here at the Midwest LSA Expo, the biggest little air show west of Oshkosh. We're now looking at an airplane that's new but old. It's been around a long time. This is called the Skycatcher, a sweet flying tandem seated airplane from Italy, but it kind of went away on us for a little while and kept its representation in the United States, but the company in Italy went away. Now we've got new people back in, a sizable company called Magni Aeronautics, and they have taken over their construction of this new airplane, and I think this is an example of it right here of their work. This is a company that does a lot of aerospace component parts, really knows their stuff in a lot of other ways, and sort of came to the rescue, if you will, of the Skycatcher. But speaking of rescues, we can't leave out the local American distributor of this airplane, which stuck with it through all the bad times and now back into the good times. They deserve a little shout out here too. That's Hanson Air Group and HansonAirGroup.com. We'll repeat that for you in a bit. Here's an all fiberglass airplane. Flies with the Rotax 912 in a pusher configuration, which we don't see too often in the LSA space, but they've made this work really well. They were early on the scene with this construction, and you can tell by the general smoothness of the aircraft that this is an exceptionally well-designed airplane. It not only qualifies as a special light sport aircraft, but has actually in its past earned Part 23 approval as well. I don't think I can think of another light sport aircraft that can boast that quality as well. Tandem seating for the pilot. Up front here, sitting slightly higher in the back for the occupant in the rear, and behind that seat is a little bit of cargo space available for you. But this airplane has one more feature that distinguishes it. This airplane can be fitted with hand controls. In fact, has been, and has trained probably more disabled people have learned how to fly in the Skycatcher than any other airplane on the planet. The hand control system kind of fits right about here. It's not in this particular airplane, but it fits about here. It allows someone without the use of their legs to fly this airplane without having to push on rudder pedals. It all takes place between the joystick on this side and a hand control over here that controls the rudder pedal movement and the throttle movements, so that they can just keep their hands in two positions, do everything they need to. We can get more information about the Skycatcher, and the Hanson Air Group company has other airplanes that we'll look at here in other videos. They're available on HansonAirGroup.com, or you can find more information about any of their airplanes available at my website, which is bydanjohnson.com or bydanjohnson.com. We're here at the Midwest LSA Expo, the biggest little show west of Oshkosh. I'm Dan Johnson, and today we're looking at, right now anyway, we're looking at what some people know as the Piper Sport, but which is actually the Sport Cruiser, sold in the United States these days by U.S. Sport Aircraft, an outfit with an organization in Florida and another one in Texas, and they've got a lot of things going on that you can come back to a website we'll mention in a minute and hear more about. But this airplane has become one of the most popular in the U.S. They had a good year last year. They sold a good many of them last year. The numbers aren't important now, but you can find that information out as well. But there's been a lot of these sold, partly because Piper added their name to it for a while, but more importantly because it's a nice flying low-wing airplane developed by an American in the Czech Republic right back at the beginning of the category of light sport aircraft. It has satisfied an awful lot of people, and it's been used quite successfully in flight schools. This is an all-metal airplane with the usual certain amount of composite materials used around the engine cowl and on the fairings and so forth. But otherwise, an all-metal side-by-side airplane, joystick-controlled, Rotax 912 power, sweet little flying airplane with some nice characteristics, one of which is it can get slow really well. And for a lot of people, being able to go slow just to sightsee or just because it keeps you further away from a stall in the air is a nice thing. A lot to be said for the Sport Cruiser from U.S. Sport Aircraft. So there's a lot to know about this airplane, and we're going to give you their website address in just a moment. But two things about this airplane that are kind of cool. One of which is this airplane has adapted a system literally called FlyCool from a company called AMT, or Air Management Technologies. That means it's air conditioning for a light sport aircraft. We looked at that air conditioning system at Oshkosh. Very impressive. I've flown with it. It is terribly cool. In addition, the company has something they call Sport Shares. The Sport Cruiser, so Sport Shares, and it's a way for you to get into an ownership of one of these airplanes as a partner, but U.S. Sport Aircraft will help you get into it. Get more about all that in the U.S. Sport Aviation at ussportaircraft.com, or you can go to my website. You'll find them and all the other LSA we talked about at bydanjohnson.com or bydanjohnson.com. We are here at the Midwest LSA Expo, the biggest little air show west of the Oshkosh. Now we're looking at the Sting S4, and you can imply by the number that this is the fourth generation of this airplane. In fact, when I first flew it, this was a retractable airplane long before the light sport space came along. Once that did, of course, it had to go to fixed gear. It's still available in Europe with retractable gear, but not in the United States because that doesn't fit the light sport aircraft rule. One of the sleekest airplanes in the fleet, as you can easily see, not only by its dramatic paint job, but just by its general smoothness. This is an all carbon fiber airplane as well, done by a company in Europe called TL-Ultralight and sold in the United States by Sport Air USA. Side-by-side conventional control, steerable nose wheel, Rotax power plant, 3-blade prop, and the company in particular has distinguished itself by the number of extra things that it offers. All of their airplanes are sold with parachutes, for example. They use the Galaxy brand out of the Czech Republic. They have also pioneered an idea like a straight and level button that you can just hit and it'll quickly put the airplane back to straight and level just in case the pilot gets a little overwhelmed by the situation. And they were one of the first to embrace seatbelt airbags and other things. They've done a lot of stuff to try and stay ahead of the fleet. They had the first night vision kind of system that you could buy for an airplane. Now that's been incorporated into the glass screens that we see from companies like Dynon under the name Synthetic Vision, but they were early at bringing that kind of technology into these airplanes. It's one of the characteristics of light sport aircraft. They get all the latest, coolest stuff first, even before the type certified airplanes do, because the effort of certifying those airplanes is so much easier that they can add equipment to it. In addition to all the hardware items that provide for safety, Bill Canino, the head of Sport Air USA, also believes very fervently in training. He's an ex-military jet jockey, and he understands the value of training very well. So with all of his airplanes, you automatically get 5 hours of training with the airplane. In fact, he probably won't let you leave without it, just to make sure you've got everything right. So you can go have fun in the airplane. First, you have to be safe in an airplane. In fact, that's their little motto: fly safe, fly fun. The Sting S4 and its iterations you can find at their website, which is very simple, sting.aero, but they've got another airplane we're going to look at in another video, and then you'll see more. You can get more information about this airplane or any of Bill's airplanes at my website, which is bydanjohnson.com or bydanjohnson.com. We're at the Midwest LSA Expo, the biggest little air show west of Oshkosh. And now we're looking at an airplane company that's got more models of LSA than any other single company. This is Tecnam from Italy. A little longer name, but some Italian words there, so we'll just stick with Tecnam. So this company, Tecnam, has got 5 models of LSA, the most of any of our LSA producers. Let me go through them here. First of all, we've got the Bravo, which is a high-wing cantilever, no struts. We've got the P2008 back over there, one of my favorites just by the sheer lines of it. That does have struts. That's one of the newest models. Right behind us, we've got their low-wing model. This is the Sierra. They've also got the Ekolot, which is a basically a great candidate for training aircraft. And then finally, they've got the Eco Classic, which just celebrated its 20th anniversary a little bit earlier. And that particular airplane, as well as some of the others, has quite a variety to it. You can get the Echo Classic with a Rotax engine or a Lycoming engine. You can get it in a tail dragger, you can get it in a tri-gear, you can get it on amphibious floats. And, well, if you can keep track of all that, you're probably a better person than I. But we can find out some more about those airplanes in just a moment.
Now, some of these airplanes are metal, and one of them is composite.
That's right. Mostly they're all metal airplanes like the Sierra behind us, which is incidentally a very strong airplane, and it's sold in Europe as a retractable version with a constant speed prop. So this airplane is really probably the toughest of the fleet, they tell me. And the behind us we see the P2008 that is as a result of Tecnam buying a company in Italy that did composite work. And here we've got a mostly, but not all, composite airplane. So Tecnam is a company that kind of does it all in light sport aircraft and is one of the leading suppliers of aircraft to our industry. So if you're like a lot of folks, you probably had trouble keeping track of all of that. I do too. But you can find out a lot more at tecnam.net. That's the U.S. company's website. From there you can connect all around. If you want more information and lots of news about them, you can go to buydanjohnson.com or bydanjohnson.com. Here at the Midwest LSA Expo, the biggest little air show west of Oshkosh. I'm Dan Johnson. We're looking at one of a kind now, in a different way, one of a kind. This is the Vans RV-12. Now Vans, if you've been around aviation more than about 15 minutes, you know the RV brand already, or the RV type already, and Vans aircraft from Richard Van Grunsven, who has done such a remarkable job, the biggest, most successful kit aircraft maker in the world. Over 7,500 flying, I think, is the accurate number now. Something like that. It changes all the time, of course. This is their light sport aircraft entry. It's the RV-12. Came out a couple of years ago, and they made one because they have to make one fully built, factory done, but they don't sell an SLSA version. They have to do that in order to make an ELSA version, and that's what this airplane is. That's what all the other ones are out there, and by all the other ones, I mean something like 350 of these. So if it was LSA only, and if you're just talking sales and not completed and flying aircraft, this one probably is #1 in the whole space because they've sold that many kits. Now, they're not all done yet, so that wouldn't be an accurate statement. It's just an interesting number to throw out there. The RV-12 has similar characteristics to all of the other RV family of airplanes. There was an RV-3, there was a 4, a 5, a 6, a 7, an 8, a 9, a 10. And they just came out with the 14 now. I guess they started skipping every other number because this is 12, they've got a 14 now. The 14 is not an LSA. This is the only LSA model they've got. Uses the Rotax engine on the front. They didn't take Cessna's lead on going with the Continental engine, which probably all of their other builders have used that or Lycoming. But they went with the Rotax engine because it's lighter, it's more powerful, it's got modern qualities to it, and it works for their airplane, and they've made it work real well. But the other thing that it shares is that it's an all-metal airplane, 100% all-metal, and this uses a technology called match-hole construction, which means that all these little rivets on the wing here, these all come in, they're pieces of metal that are delivered to you, and you have to put them together. That's not as scary as it sounds because every one of these rivets, there's already a little tiny hole there, and then you drill it out to the right size and put the rivet in. But the reason why they do that is you don't have to match anything up. It's like a coloring book where you just stay within the lines and you're good. Maybe not quite that simple, but it's a lot simpler than the old way of doing kits. Another thing that it shares with the whole RV line is that it's got some wonderful handling. These airplanes perform well and they just handle wonderfully well. I've gotten to fly the RV-12 and it was the same experience I had in an RV-4 and an RV-9. All of them, wow, really nice handling. Richard Van Grunsven's main activity that he likes is sailplane flying. And so he knows about efficiency, and these airplanes fly like they're meant to fly. Really nice. Construction time, I think, in the 700 or 800 hour range. So it's going to take you a year, 2 years maybe to put it all together. But there's lots and lots and lots of support. The airport that I live on, I think there's about 9 or 10 of these being put together, and there's a whole cadre of people out there that are able to help you build your RV airplane, whether it's an RV-12 or an RV some other number. So, more information, about the RV series and this wonderful little flying airplane, available at vansaircraft.com. I've also got information about it, including my pilot report on the RV-12, available at bydanjohnson.com or bydanjohnson.com. Continuing our tour at the Midwest LSA Expo, the biggest little air show west of Oshkosh. We're now looking, it's a new company, but it's a design that we're kind of familiar with in many ways. This is World Aircraft Company, and they're in Paris, not France, but Paris, Tennessee, and they're building 2 airplanes. What we're looking at here is the Vision. This is the newest one that we've seen, and they've also got an airplane called the Spirit. They're both similar in some ways. The Vision is so named because it's got exceptional visibility. You can tell partly by things like this instrument panel is tapered back in, which allows even a right seat occupant on the other side over there to look down this way somewhat. You can see a lot in this airplane. All clear doors, so you can see through just as easily as if they weren't there at all, but of course they give you that little bit of structure people need. And it's got some interesting features to it, many. This is done by a man named Max Tedesco, and he's out of Colombia. But he is, the airplane is designed there, but it's built here in the USA, and it's got some interesting features. One I'll point out to you right here, this joystick. That's not broken. That's leaned forward in a way that allows you to exit and enter the aircraft more easily. Push the joystick out of the way, get in nice and comfortably. Also with the door opening so far forward here as this one does, this is a real joy for big guys to get in, and indeed they've sold some of these to big fellows. So you can get more information about the Spirit and the Vision. They're all high wing, both high wing aircraft. They're all metal airplanes, and they are finding a new market on a steady basis. One of these has also been used, for example, in doing air reconnaissance and law enforcement and so forth. And we've got more information about that in one of our other videos. Get more information about the company at worldaircraftco.com, or I've got information about this airplane and the other airplane, the Spirit, on bydanjohnson.com or bydanjohnson.com. We're looking around further at the Midwest LSA Expo, the biggest little show west of Oshkosh, and we came across something you don't often see at these kinds of buyers-oriented shows like this one. You usually see the introduction of a new aircraft at one of the big shows because there's lots and lots of media there. But we saw one we haven't seen before. This is the SAB, an Italian design, and we've got a gentleman here to speak to us about what it is and what's going to happen with it. Welcome to Nyla Church. Thank you for joining us today. What are we looking at here?
Not only did it catch your eye, it caught your eye because it's sexy. It's Italian. I mean, you see that right away.
I had to get the brochure to check it all out.
Well, at any rate. But that's what catches people's eye. It's caught a number of eyes for that very reason, because it is a sexy looking aircraft. But then again, that's the way the Italian design things.
So what are we calling it?
We're going to call it the Vulcan.
The Vulcan, okay. And
that's not a sexy name, but at any rate.
No, not a very sexy name. So
it's
you kind of went away
produced
from
by Saab Aviation out of Italy. They're near Torino, and
you're going to bring it in as a fully built airplane?
It'll be a ready-to-fly aircraft. Kits will probably be available, but not initially.
Okay.
As time goes on.
And you're not quite ready for all this yet, but you're working through the details.
To
is that it?
market the aircraft, but we're getting very close, and this is the prototype, and it's had some improvements made to it since it got here in the States. So there'll be some things done in Italy over the next few months that we'll be able to bring this in, and we'll market this, and it'll be somewhere, I'm guessing, in the $125,000 neighborhood, competitively priced with the other vehicles. But it's the closest thing, in my opinion, it's the closest vehicle here to general aviation. And it has all steam gauges in it for that very reason.
We saw that it has that way, and I see it's an all metal construction.
It's all metal construction. It's
some
heavy.
fiberglass wheel
it is
pants
a
and so
heavy
forth.
duty. So right now we've got a little less payload than some of these aircraft because we're pushing about an 830-pound frame here.
All right, well, we're going to come back and get some more information, a little more detail about it. Right now, we're doing a quick whiz around the show just to give the full depth of it. But welcome to Nyla Church, showing
Dan,
off the
thank
Vulcan
you
from
have a good
SAB
day.
Aviation.
Enjoy the show.
You can get more information about this as we get closer to it. He's not quite ready yet, but I'll have some news for you as soon as they get it on bydanjohnson.com or bydanjohnson.com. We're still here at the Midwest LSA Expo, the biggest little air show west of Oshkosh, and now we're looking at the Zenith company. Zenith is a kit producer. They don't make fully built airplanes, but they sell a lot of kits, a couple hundred of them per year, making them one of the most successful companies in the business. Behind me here, we look at the all-metal 650. This has been around a long time. It used to be known as the 601, and has, I think, about 20 or more years in the business. And there's a lot of these flying. I want to guess about 1,500, but plenty of them flying. The 650 is the newest iteration of this, wider cockpit, a little smoother lines, a little better performance. They kind of put it all together, but it's an all-metal construction, and it's done within as a kit in what's called match hole production, where the pieces of metal that you have to put together already have little holes in them. You just kind of line them up and punch them through and drill it out and put your rivet in. You don't have to have a fancy jig to make these airplanes. They have got kit building down to kind of a science. Over to my right here, we see the kit partly underway. This is the 750, and this particular one is a little different than some of the others. Besides being an all-metal high wing compared to an all-metal low wing, this particular one is using the UL power engine in it. Zenith has been one of the companies that has embraced a number of different engines for their builders. Kind of whatever their builders want to put in it, they'll help support that, and UL power is coming on strong for that company. So we talked about Zenith as a kit manufacturer, but that's not the only way you can get their airplanes. Here's a brand new airplane. It's actually sort of the same airplane that we looked at in kit form, the all aluminum one you just saw. This one is the same airplane. It's a 750, but it's built by a new company called Tenn Air, T-E-N-N Air, and they are going to offer this as a ready-to-fly airplane for the remarkable price of $74,900. Now that's an intro price, but even later on it'll only be $84,900, and that is a great value on a nice flying airplane with some very special short takeoff and landing characteristics, and the 3300 Jabiru engine in it that gives it 120 horsepower. So this is a get up and goer, quite literally. We're going to do a full report on this airplane in a little bit, but we're glad to show you this one. You can get more information from Tenn Air, TENN-Air.com. Or I can give you more information about it on bydanjohnson.com or bydanjohnson.com. Well, we're finally finishing up our tour here. 40-some airplanes later at the Midwest Light Sport Aircraft Expo, and we are at the biggest little air show west of Oshkosh. I'm losing my lines here. We're getting so good at this. This is the Paragan from a company called Fleming Air in Europe, and it's sold as one of the fleet of airplanes, the light sport aircraft that Hanson Air Group sells. This airplane distinguishes itself in a couple of ways. First of all, it's an all-composite aircraft, very sleek and smooth looking, side-by-side, Rotax 912 power, dual joysticks. A lot of the common features that we find on so many of our light sport aircraft, but this particular one did something unusual. There's a little tag up here on the nose of the airplane, and it reads LSA Transcontinental Speed Record, Jacksonville, Florida to San Diego, California, June 8, 2009. Now, I don't know if it's an official transcontinental record. That doesn't really matter. But two young folks, at least one of them who went through the Able Flight, which is a wonderful company that helps disabled people learn to fly, and they do so in light sport aircraft. So you want to remember the name Able Flight because they are a wonderful company that could use a donation to help. They have gotten veterans and many other people who are disabled in one way or another learn how to fly. I think 20 people have earned their sport pilot certificate, and they have been heavily supported in that wonderful endeavor by Hanson Air Group that has supplied to them the Skycatcher for much of that training. But they took this particular one of those graduates and another individual, a flight instructor, and they flew this airplane from Jacksonville, Florida to San Diego in 17 hours. Now that's airtime, that's not continuous. They had to stop and get fuel, but the airtime was 17 hours. That's a pretty quick trip, transcontinental in a light sport aircraft. When they finally arrived in San Diego, I love this line they used. Somebody from the media interviewed them and said, well, how did your flight go? And what was the most difficult part of your flight? This is a long flight you two took together. What was the most difficult part? Both of them answered together, Texas. It's a big state, and they flew east to west across it. That had to take several hours just to do that. But it just proves that these light sport aircraft, like the Paragan from Fleming Air, sold by Hanson Air Group, are capable of delivering cross-country flying all the way across this big country if you like, or just have fun in your local area. Get more information about the FA04 Paragan and the Skycatcher and the FK12 Comet and more from HansonAirGroup.com. Find out about all of these airplanes, the whole fleet out here at the Midwest LSA Expo at bydanjohnson.com or bydanjohnson.com. Thanks for watching. Here at the Midwest LSA Expo, what we're calling the biggest little air show west of Oshkosh, we've now looked at every single airplane on the field, and that's more than 40, but that's the exhibitors. There's more than that here, I understand.
Yeah, we're packed. There's been a good day today. All of the transient lot is filled, and then we were over on the south ramp with some of the turbine stuff that come in.
And you've had some come up here that you were trying to park in as an exhibitor, and you said, now they already bought them here, and they're just a customer coming back to look now. Huh?
That's something that we just discovered this year. Is some of the exhibitors were late getting here, and there's so many models sold now that I think there's been a couple Tecnams that have come up, and I know the Evektor SportStar was one of them, and Jabiru.
And you're trying to park them here in an exhibitor spot, and they're just saying, no, I'm just here to see some more.
I'm thinking it's Steve Minich or Pete Crotty, and it's some owner that bought one at previous years.
Well, I was speaking of that. I've heard some people say they've made some sales right here at this show. That's what this show is kind of about, and I love the fact that I've now observed just today and just in the last hour 4 or 5 people to say, no, can I go up for another ride right now? Well, sure. They turn the airplane around, and literally in 2 minutes they're back out on the runway and they're up in the air. You can't do that at any other show that I've been to, even some of the other smaller venue shows like this. That's a special thing, Chris.
Yeah, we're proud of that, and that's the way the facility is laid out and the way we have the rope line set up. It was meant to do that, is to get right out right there at that point of sale. And I think we're going to try to come out of this with next year's theme as being the intimate air show or something to that effect, that stresses that this is the place to go where you could get up close and personal with the exhibitors and the airplane and get right out to fly.
You know, you've got a pretty good crowds here today, but it's a big enough ramp, and there's enough room, and nobody's got to be in a rush, and they're not tearing around like they do at the big shows because you've got so far to go. But what's really important here is not the number of people that show up. That's always a value, and we all watch that benchmark, but the important thing is how many of them are serious, looking for an airplane, and might actually make a purchase and satisfy their dream of flight, isn't it?
Yes, and we knew it was going to be like that. I had several emails and phone calls 2-3 weeks ahead of the show of, is exhibitor A or B or C going to be there, because I'm coming, I'm looking at those 3 models, and I'm going to make a choice there at that show. So we knew we were going to have that.
Come from Minnesota. We've had people come from Texas. The people from
several from Tennessee I talked to.
Yeah,
2 or 3
they come
fellows.
all over. Even the people from the Sky Baby. We had people from Oklahoma coming here just to see the Sky Baby.
So it's drawn better and better. This is the 4th annual now. People are always congratulatory to you, Chris, as the leader of the event here, and you do a great job of seeing to everyone's needs in many ways. But you've also got a pretty good bunch of folks all wearing the bright orange shirts this year. How many volunteers you tap into, and how is that working for you?
Well, we had 60 shirts, and sadly the employees, only about half the employees have them. So we're probably looking at 45 volunteers that have come, and I'm still owed 10 more shirts to other volunteers.
Is that right? So there it gives you the size of it.
Yeah, it's
even
at least
for what
60.
seems like a small show, you've got to have 50, 60 people, and they all got to be willing to do some work, and they're all doing that as volunteers.
Yes.
That's a really great thing.
Another thing I want to bring out, Dan, is that we had a storm come through here last night, and they had room in all of these hangars for all of the exhibitors.
Well, you know, you said something really interesting, and I want you to do this for me, but Last night, yeah, there was a threat of some hail possibly, and we don't want that. And it didn't turn out that we had that, I don't believe, but nonetheless, you want to be careful. So some people were scrambling to get airplanes and put away, but you said, well, if we don't have room for them all, how are you going to solve that problem?
Airport north of us, Salem LaCrone Field, has 2 large hangars that worked out a deal with the airport manager, and he was very welcoming to send everybody up there, and then we would send our shuttles up to Salem and pick everybody up. And
You said that's a 20-minute flight or something?
Yeah, 20 miles nautical.
20 miles nautical, yeah, so not even that.
Yeah.
You dash up there,
Right
put your
up the
airplane in a
interstate.
hangar, you guys come up there and get them, bring them back. That kind of service. The big shows do a wonderful job in many ways, but they just can't deliver that kind of personal service. They couldn't possibly try.
But we didn't need to, because everybody on this field stepped up. We packed all the exhibitor hall exhibits up along the walls, and I think we had 25 or 28 of the light sports in the exhibitor hall hangar. And what was really interesting is we had guys that were out on cross countries in our T hangars that I've made phone calls to, and they said, "Oh yeah, use our hangars."
Ah, is that right? Great.
Yeah. So we had I think all the planes, but about 6 made it inside last night.
Remarkable support here from Chris Collins and his whole team here at the Midwest LSA Expo. Looking forward to the 5th annual next year.
Yes.
Thanks for talking to us, Chris.
Thank you guys. I
And
appreciate all
let's
that
do
you
this. Where do we go to get some more information about next year's show? What's happened at this one? What's your web address?
MidwestLSAShow.com.
Excellent. And I've got information about the show as well as next year's dates and this year's dates. All that's available with lots of reviews of airplanes on bydanjohnson.com or bydanjohnson.com. Thanks for watching today.